All right, welcome to Community Update 156. Let me share my screen and the link in the chat. So I have a relatively light update, but the work is going on. It's one of those weeks where basically we have been going through the testing, debugging, resolving the failing tests, and things like that. But starting with the mainnet and testnet, nothing has changed on those. So I think I'll skip that part. The block merge has been the main focus. And then we are, like I said, resolving the issues that we see in the code. Some of that, of course, is the failing tests, but some of that is looking at and resolving suspected bugs in the previous code. And then the optimization of how the blocks are merged. So there is a new task to create caching where so that the block merge, at least some portion of the block merge analysis and merging itself can happen in the in memory, and then indexing more of the data in the block to be able to enable faster merge. So those are some of the things that we're doing. So once all of this is working, and probably sometime next week, towards the end of next week, we may be able to have a release that we could use to measure how the performance is with the block merge, specifically what is the degree of horizontal scaling we get with that. So that's kind of what we're shooting for at this point in time, subject to us not finding anything surprising or new between now and then. So that's where we are with that. The beyond that, there's quite a bit of other work that needs to be done with block merge. We're just trying to get to the first release of block merge is where we are. And I covered some of the things that we need to do later already in the previous debriefs. So I'll skip that part. There was a piece we were doing. There was a PR that we were working on to convert seek to vector in the event log and see if that improves performance any. And we were, in particular, we wanted to see if that would also help the block merge performance. But we did not see too much benefit from that. So for now, I closed the PR. And in future, I think future versions of Scala 2.13 and 3.0 have new data structures that may be more performant. For example, there is RChain as one of the structures. So when we get to that point with the dependency updates, where we have the newer versions of Scala, we will play with those new data structures and see if that helps helps performance in any way. So that's the other piece that we have been looking at. And let me see. On the SRE, Gurinder is exploring machine configurations to see whether we are optimally configured in terms of the threads per machine threads per node relative to the number of nodes in the network. Basically, what we want to create is a situation where if there are 30 nodes in the network, which is what we have on the mainnet right now, that blocks from the 30 different nodes can be processed in parallel. Each block processing is sequential at this point in time, but still, at least we need to be able to enable all the blocks from all the nodes to be processed. So it's then there is a relationship of that to memory consumption and to disk I/O And these are the things that Gurinder is kind of trying to play with to see what is an optimal configuration and what is the relationship of the optimal configuration of the machine with the nodes in the network. So that's something that we're doing. And then, of course, one other goal in that activity is to see if we can still squeeze more out of the free budget we have from IBM on a per month basis. That's the other thing we're trying to do. So those, I think, are the main parts of the report I have today. There is, Steve Ross Talbot has been pressing along with COVID Passport, introducing it to other places. And I started engaging with the Linux Public Health Forum, or Linux Public Health Foundation, I guess, to see if we can get more engaged with the several communities that are working in that space. So that work is going on. That's where we are, I think, from a technical perspective. Are there any questions on any of this? Or all right, over to you, Greg.
Great. Well, thanks very much for the update. I'm thrilled to see the progress. I want to say that I just got off a Zoom call with a really remarkable researcher. I won't mention names just yet, but this person has a background in formal methods and AI and cybersecurity and analysis, basically digital policy, and has credentials from Edinburgh, Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, MIT. So very, very lovely person. And I'm hoping to get them more involved in the RChain discussion. They're exactly the kind of person that we'd like to bring into the discussion and who I think would be thrilled to be engaged. So look for more of that in the next few months. But this is part of a larger effort that we're making now to begin to get the word out about RChain. In particular, we have a video plan. So we've got a fairly good sort of backlog of content that we want to produce in a series of videos. One of them, I think you saw the harbinger of that, which is the thread on Twitter. Hardly recommend folks to go take a look at that thread. The basic idea is, if you're an investor and you want to evaluate different blockchains, well, here's some questions you might want to ask yourself about the blockchains you're investing in. And the thought is, it's kind of like the old Motley Fool videos where, they gave investment advice like, well, if you find yourself buying this product or service and, you want to recommend it to your friends or family members, then it's probably a good idea to own some stock in that thing. So, really very, very common sense kind of advice. And the same for this series, just really some common sense advice for how to think about and evaluate different blockchain offerings. A really most basic question is, what happens to the blockchain as you add hardware? If the answer isn't, as you add hardware, it gets faster, you get more throughput, you get better scaling, then it's probably not the best blockchain. because that's how we've been scaling for the last 25 years or so. Throw more hardware at it. So if that isn't what's going on, at least in this area of computing, then maybe it's not the best offering. It's not where you want to be sinking gobs of capital, unless they have a plan to enable that, so that when you do add hardware, you get better scaling. So those kinds of common sense evaluation is a part of this series of videos. For the folks who have been involved in sort of developing the outline of this, any other questions or any other comments you might want the community to know? Daryl, Rao, Steve, anybody?
I'm so glad that the thread is up now. I think a lot of people are going to see it and appreciate it.
Good, yeah. So we'll sort of expand on those things like that.
Yeah, that's great. I've just seen it. I've liked the whole thing, so I'm gonna read it after this.
Awesome. Daryl, you turned your mic on.
You noticed. Yeah, I guess I'm just I'm excited about this because I think that if we can kind of figure out a way to kind of express to people the things that are special about RChain without trolling other projects, I think that'd be a great thing. And because there's so many people who how do I say this right? We've had such a hard time kind of expressing that to the public, and so hopefully these videos are going to help do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I'm kind of interested in it for, kind of to be neutral about it.
Yeah.
I think for many of these, we can be up front, and say, well, we're from RChain, but this kind of information is just something that you ought to be concerned about, whether you're pro RChain or against RChain, or, pro, I don't know, neon, or whatever it is you're currently enthusiastic about. Just ask yourself these questions, and I think it has value over and above, the general hype fray. Yeah. So yeah, I think it'll be very important, and it's a way of shaping a dialogue, which I think could be more beneficial. I mean, it's the kind of dialogue that, as an engineer or an investor, I'm more interested in having than others. That said, I'm also very interested in putting together an article that has to do with the kind of anecdotal evidence that we've been gathering about the main hypothesis, for me, is my main hypothesis for RChain. So the hypothesis that I, formulated for myself was, if you put the coordination technology together, then that will dramatically increase the likelihood and actuality of a community self-organizing. So I think of our vote as very much an affirmative kind of answer, like this. Affirmative kind of answer to this hypothesis. It's a bit of a proof point. Likewise, I think the COVID passport is a proof point. I think that DAppy, once people really grasp what DAppy is about, will also become a proof point. Right now, I'm not seeing the kind of community engagement around DAppy that I think it deserves, because I think it's an incredibly powerful piece of technology, but I don't think that people have taken it up with the kind of vigor that it deserves. And I think that, you know, it kind of suffers from RChain syndrome, which is it's incredibly valuable and useful, and people haven't grokked what it's all about yet. But you know, I think that there's an art being to be written about, not if you build it, they will come, but if you provide the means for people to organize, there is such a need for people to organize that they will using the technology. And I'd love to have any comments to that end from the community.
It's like, for me, it's like when you learn communications theory 101, the first thing you learn about is the Shannon-Weaver model, which is based around the concepts of redundancy and entropy. And my other life as a music producer, I use this to explain to artists sometimes the whole idea that to communicate an idea, you have to have something new, because it's a new idea, right? So there's something new and fresh that the other person is not experienced yet, because you're wanting to communicate something new to that person, and that's the entropy. But it has to float on a boat of redundancy to get there. Otherwise, it's just chaos. So somehow the other person who's receiving the information needs some type of redundancy to be able to have this new idea kind of presented to upon. So to me, that's kind of like just the big challenge of communication, and the big challenge of, you know, writing some music and creating some music that other people are going to get. There has to be that balance. Ideally, you want to load it up with entropy if you can, you know, and utilize the least amount of redundancy you have to get the point across. But sometimes it has to be the other way around. It really depends on the situation. So I kind of always try to think of those things when thinking about, you know, how can we get the word out about RChain effectively, and there has to be, you know, the proper blend of both in order to kind of get it across. And I think we're swimming in a lot of entropy, and because it's a hard thing to explain, it's a hard thing to understand. So if we can simplify it and get some redundancy going on, you know, I think we can kind of, you know, crack this egg. So hopefully these videos are going to help do that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but I was actually more interested in just that very, very focused question of if you build an appropriate organizing technology, that people will use it. So you know, as an example, I think Facebook, it can be an organizing technology. I think Twitter can be an organizing technology. And you know, like, you know, it took a long time, I think, for people to actually grasp the many uses of Twitter. But once people grasp it, you know, then it was, you know, it became powerful enough to topple governments. And similarly for a lot of these different kinds of technologies, I think that RChain, because it is so that it has many abstract elements, or elements that are not familiar to most people. People haven't yet grasped what it means as a coordination technology. But once they get it, if there's enough examples, once they see the examples and it kind of goes, oh, and the light bulb goes on, then I think we'll start to see more and more community engagement, where people, you know, they set up an RChat system, or they start using RVote, or you know, they start writing DApps that are based around DAppy, those kinds of things, and things that we had never thought of, which is the more important thing. That's what I'm talking about, is that hypothesis that people are more likely to self-organize with RChain added than they are otherwise.
Yeah, this is I agree, and this is the interesting thing about blockchain platforms and blockchain projects is that at the same time you want to tell people that it will be more efficient and decentralized if they switch from centralized stuff to the blockchain equivalent. But at the same time, you also want to invite developers to think some new trust models or relationships, because blockchain allows for those new configurations to be developed. And as RChain is a platform, so you're just providing the tools, and DAppy is kind of the same. The goal is for people to build incredible stuff that none of us have thought about at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Coolio. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts about that particular topic? Either the video series or this topic of self-organization. If not, I'll turn it over to Daryl for the community and review.
I would just mention that John Grant went into this in a little detail in terms of the details of this in the RCast 120 climate coordination, where he went over worldly mappings and how the RChain technology here was the enabler of digital sovereignty, which is, I guess, related to the notion where you have dynamic governance, and first the hackers in the accepting stage, and then in the conversion stage that goes to users. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I hear you for sure. I agree, and this is kind of, there's this connection between digital sovereignty and self-organization that is key. But I think it takes a while for people to absorb. I guess one of the ways I think about it is how often I look around the elements of my present moment and how little of it I'm actually taking in. And every once in a while, I have an aha moment when I realize, oh my gosh, there's this diamond right here in my present moment that I have not been paying attention to at all. And so I have a feeling that it's a little bit of that. But over to you, Daryl.
Okay, so here is the Community Week in Review for the 21st to today, the 27th. Let's see, there was no governance committee call on Thursday, so I'll jump straight to Friday at the climate coordination call. We talked about Biden's cancellation of the Keystone XL oil pipeline, the United States re-entering the Paris Climate Accords, Elon Musk's $100 million prize for carbon capture technology, and BlackRock entering the Bitcoin market. We also had further discussion about RChain's technology and coordination and concurrency. And the co-op has now officially joined the Climate Chain Coalition. So if you go to climatechaincoalition.io, you can see us on the membership list there. On Monday at the Casper Stand-Up, this week's Casper Stand-Up covered an extension of Christian Williams' structural types to cover the full range of desiderata in OSLF, operational semantics in logical form. Also, let's see, on Tuesday at the Communications Working Group, we went through Raphael's Get Started page. He's going to add a couple changes and make it live. It will replace the hackathon page at rchain.coop. Steve Henley shared a doc that he's that is focused on getting our ducks in a row for the potential hire of a PR firm. And we discussed the video plans that we were just talking about. And that was the communications call. And then the only other call I have now is this morning at the active member hangout. A contact of Jim's named Jiri Lajos joined the call, and he discussed and demoed a project he's working on called Fission. He wrote a paper in 2019 for the Semantic Web. Fission is a developer tool for web native apps that does all the heavy lifting for you and maps it on the IPFS. You can create instant communities, create your own social network. He says it's kind of like Scuttlebutt, but every person in the network is a hub. A really fascinating project and fascinating person. So I was happy to have made his acquaintance this morning. And that is it for last week.
I would mention that it seemed like the Fission app might combine with DAppy in a very interesting way.
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. That's certainly worth taking a look at.
Yep, it's very sad that I have missed this presentation.
I recorded it.
It was dinner time in France.
Priorities, man, priorities. Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you can probably connect.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We have very good news about the co-ops situation. Yeah, things have turned out very nicely over the last 24 hours. So we will be giving co-op members an update about that. And I will say that there's only a tiny little bit left in the books on the member sale. So if you did want to get in, that is almost completely closed out. So yeah, more on that in the closed door session. Let's see, what else do we need to cover in this session? There are some interesting policy discussions that the board is kicking around. We want to kick them around a little bit more before we open it up to member discussion so that we can actually even just frame the questions properly. Yeah, so look forward to that, not this closed door session, but possibly the one after that. Let's see, anything else that we need to cover in this discussion? Anyone from the staff? Anything from the community?
Just a mini update on DAppy. There was a new release. So it's 0.36. And so yep, it's nothing. It's yes, nothing fundamentally new, but yes, the software keeps being updated every 1 or 2 months, and we are preparing for the main DAppy name system. So everything is getting ready.
Awesome, that is great news. I really want to work with you, Raphael, to develop a coupon for the co-op using your token system. So I just haven't. I've been overloaded, but I think it'd be really interesting to develop a nice coupon system. So let's find some time to have that conversation.
Yes, it's a very good idea. Yes.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. Please stay safe to everyone, and see you on the other side.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.